Good evening, everyone. I'm Leo Lambert, president of the university, and it is my great privilege tonight to bring warm congratulations to the 2016 inductees of Phi Beta Kappa. It is a tremendous honor to be with you tonight. This is truly a momentous occasion in your life, and it is a great privilege for me to celebrate with you and your families. When you think about it, only about 10% of the institutions of higher education in the nation have a chapter of Phi Beta Kappa, and approximately only the top 10% of students in the arts and sciences are inducted into Phi Beta Kappa. So this is a really big deal. You have fully demonstrated your superior academic achievement and your commitment to excellence. And truly, I think this room is lighted up tonight by your collective intelligence. As you all know, Elon's motto, Numen Lumen, signifies both intellectual and spiritual light. And I'd like to reflect for a moment on both sources of illumination. Your intellectual capacities, students, and your achievements have made you worthy of induction into the highest honorary society in the land. But I hope you will always marry that impressive brain power with qualities we associate with spiritual forces: great compassion, ethical moorings, concern for the most vulnerable, passion for justice and fair play, and courage to stand up for what is right and true. This is the kind of leadership the world is crying out for today. And this is why my great faculty colleagues and I come to campus every day with such passion and excitement. Because you, 2016 inductees, represent the best minds and the best citizens that Elon produces. You give us great joy, and you give us great hope. And I promise you, in the future, people will point to you and say, that woman or that man has such a fine mind and is such a good human being. And we will be proud to claim you as daughters and sons of Elon. Warmest congratulations to each and every one of you. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce my good colleague and dear friend, Professor Prudence Lane, Associate Professor of English. Dr. Lane.
I initially wanted to play the Chamberlain Brothers rendition of People Get Ready, but we're gonna skip that. Joss Stone has a really nice rendition as well. And I'm just gonna say, hey, Elon people, get ready. So my call to you obviously borrows from Robert F. Darden's highly acclaimed 2004 work, People Get Ready, A New History of Gospel Music. The text is described as a passionate, celebratory, and carefully researched chronology of one of America's greatest treasures. From the book's introduction, the author writes, among the richest of the lavish gifts of Africa that Africa has given to the world is rhythm, the beat, the sound of wood on wood, hand on hand, that indescribable pulse that sets blood to racing and toes to tapping. It is rhythm that drives the great American musical export. the spiritual and by extension gospel, the blues, jazz, and rock and roll. But first, you must have the spirituals, religion with rhythm. It is my pleasure on behalf of Elon University's Eta Chapter of Phi Beta Kappa to welcome Dr. Robert Bob Darden to our campus and to share with all of you what every singer, listener, and musician of the spiritual, of gospel has known for centuries. And a sentiment that the late Mahalia Jackson so accurately summarizes for us. When you sing gospel, you have a feeling that there is a cure for what's wrong. The first Mahalia Jackson album that he received from his parents for Christmas began a lifelong passion for what Professor Darden describes as an attempt to replicate the thrill that listening to that album gave me. It is precisely this energy that catapulted 11-year-old Darden on the path to becoming one of the foremost expert scholars, authors, archivists, and narrators of Black sacred music. Robert F. Darden is a professor in the Department of Journalism, Public Relations, and New Media at Baylor University. Baylor is also his alma mater. He graduated from there in 1976 with a Bachelor of Science in Education, focusing on journalism. And not straying far from his roots and for his love of Texas, he graduated from the University of North Texas in 1978 with a master's degree in journalism. He's the author of more than 24 books, including Nothing But Love in God's Water, Black Sacred Music, From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, Volume 1, with Volume 2 also available, and hundreds of magazine articles and short stories. With more than 30 years of journalism experience, he has been interviewed and featured on NPR, C-SPAN, and other media. Professor Darden served as gospel music editor for Billboard magazine from 1984 to 1994 and is a frequent contributor to the Huffington Post. He currently serves as the director of Baylor's Black Gospel Music Restoration Project. So while his impressive biography, scholarship, and experience already reveals his love and passion for music, if any of you are ever in Texas, he is the vocalist and drummer of the band After Midnight, a popular Waco-based R&B band, and you can check them out at www.aftermidnightwaco.com. No royalties were exchanged for the promotion of that band. Professor Darden, it is with great anticipation that your remarks this evening will extol the PBK motto, love of learning, guide of life, and will inspire us to harness the power and potential of Africa's drumbeat and rhythm in our lives. So Elon, are you ready? Are you ready? Join me in a warm round of applause for our speaker, Dr. Robert Darden.
Greetings, I bring you friendship and extends the hand of fellowship from the Baylor Phi Beta Kappa chapter, which was much too wise to admit me during my Baylor days and remains strong even now. I spoke at the 4 o'clock address about Nothing But Love in God's Water, Black sacred music from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, and focused primarily on the words. How these words changed the world, and how the words from before the American Civil War, right through the Civil Rights Movement, and now, even now, these very words from these very songs are changing lives and hearts in as places as far away as the Arab Spring and the Black Lives Matter. So when I asked what would you like for me to talk about, Megan, when it was time to say, when I just gave my magnum opus and everything I knew At 4 o'clock, she says, oh, talk for about 10 minutes on the music. And I said, well, good, I'll separate the music. What I found out later was she was still holding a grudge from what I said about English departments in the previous 4 o'clock and picked something hard for me to do. Thank you, Megan. I love talking about the music. I love talking about this music. I love talking about music that matters. And why I think this applies to Phi Beta Kappa is it because of all the many organizations and honors that are available to students. You guys are closest to my heart because you will walk out of here with multiple skills. You will have a liberal arts education in the very finest part of the word. And one part of that, and perhaps one that you have always enjoyed and listened to, because I very rarely run into somebody who doesn't like music, is that music itself. Music itself. Many of the old legends that go back long before we wrote down words talk about how the world and the cosmos began. And in the Golden Bough and some of the other books that track these ancient messages and words that later became the hero's journey, a number of them begin the same way. Over thousands of years, the world is created when it is sung into being. And if you've read Tolkien and some of the other great fantasists, even in the Silmarillion and the others, the great creator sings the new world into being. And ever since then, song has been at the heart and the heartbeat of what it means to be human and what separates us. Music and that lifeblood that comes from Africa may be for what it is in the United States for popular music, but music has always been there. And music gives us something that we have trouble articulating in any other way. Blake talks about prayer being the inarticulate speech of the heart. Well, music is that prayer. And we talk about listening to the music of the spheres. Well, yes, the heavens ring out. Just as the land can cry out when blood and degradation was caused in the Civil War and civil rights now, then the universe can sing out. And it does. And there's a music in the planets and in the earth. And there's a music in all of our souls. What I ask you to continue to think about as you leave here is to keep that precious song in your heart. I don't know what your religions, if any, all of you are. I don't know where faith plays in any part of your life, but we do know from the oldest records we have of the existing churches that music was there at the core. And it was used to convey things and to praise and to sing and to pray to gods, or perhaps gods in some cases, the message that we couldn't really say and couldn't write because our hands were too clumsy and our words were too crude, but we could sing it. I'm not a linguist, but I love reading about the roots of words and following languages. And the BBC did an extraordinary series a few years ago on the history of how people communicate. And they wanted to find out what was the oldest language, what were the oldest words known that were still being talked about today. And they went back and they found some interesting things that perhaps you already know. Music, in many ways, is the most conservative of all the many art forms. It takes a long time to change music. In fact, many of the children's songs that are still being sung on the playgrounds across the world today are almost verbatim to how they were sung 200 and 300 years ago. And the words are often rarely changed. London Bridge is falling down. It's been a long time since London Bridge fell down. Ashes, ashes, or tissue, tissue. We all fall down depending on what part of the country you're from. And you don't have to go much far from here to Appalachia and to hear in the keening voices and the odd dissonant harmonies, stuff that carries from the Celtic French. And so it goes, following music and the music of people. The BBC kept trying to find what are the oldest words? What is the last language that would have been spoke by people not far from the people who emerged from the unions with Neanderthal? And they go and they follow, and it takes them on a journey that drives through the Indus Valley, and they continue following these languages as linguistics tell us that this language spun off from this one, and just like reverse engineering DNA, where we can find out who our ancestors were, you can do that to music. And they follow it all the way back to a few tribes of people living on the west coast of India, all the way nearly down to Sri Lanka. And there were people in this obscure little religion singing praises to their god or gods. That was words that were 5,000 years old. You were hearing language spoken that from before the time of Jesus. You were hearing language that would have been spoken at the time of the pharaohs, and it was the same language because song carried it, and using music it was able to sustain, and people could remember it. As my research has taken me through the decades on the civil rights movement, and as we all know, some of the greatest orators of the 20th century come from the civil rights movement. And the people who were there, and Mary and I had the great privilege to talk to so many of them, some who are gone even since we talked to them. And they remember those heady, dangerous days when they were never more alive and when they were making a difference and a change, maybe not for themselves. And like Dr. King said, I may not go where I wish you, but they were doing it. And they couldn't remember anything that anybody really said, and they couldn't remember the sermons, and they couldn't remember what they read. But even in their little feeble 80-year-old, 88-year-old voices could sing us the songs again. And they sang the songs of their childhood, and they sang the children's songs, and they sang the civil rights songs, and they sang the old hymns. And I remember my grandmother in her last days, my grandmother who I lived with for several years, and all she wanted to do at the very end was talk about the fact that I'm still clinging to the old rugged cross. She remembered that when everything else was gone, including my name. But she remembered the old rugged cross, and she sang it to me. We sing and we live in music, and when you live here, music is going to be a part of that. I wish we could all take music appreciation courses by teachers who love it as much as you do, and take it and make it part of your life and curriculum, and encourage your kids to sing and sing congregationally, and sing and sing and sing until you're hoarse, because singing makes communion, singing makes congregation, singing makes human beings of us all. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow members of Phi Beta Kappa, honored guests, we meet here today to receive into our society those who, having qualified for election, now wish to be admitted to its privileges and undertake its responsibilities. In a ceremony that goes back to the time of the founding of our nation, we shall welcome them into an association with all those who have been members of Phi Beta Kappa in the past and into a lifelong relationship with society today. The candidates for membership in course will please rise. According to Phi Beta Kappa documents dating from 1779, the president of the Alpha Chapter greeted initiates as follows. This society was founded by a few friends. At first it was confined to a small number of very worthy students. They planted the scion from which has grown this tree that now buds forth before your eyes with blossoms of harmony and concord. It was engrafted on the stock of friendship in the soil of virtue enriched by literature. To cherish and keep it alive hath been the constant care of those members who have succeeded. You are about to become one of those successors, and it is our fondest hope that you, in turn, will come to cherish the society and will strive to perpetuate the spirit of the greeting. You may be seated. As is customary on this occasion, Phi Beta Kappa member Shannon Tennant will give you a brief account of the history of the society.
On December 5th, 1776, a group of young men who were then studying at the College of William and Mary in Virginia met to create a secret society, at once intellectual and social in purpose. The president's greeting to new members in 1779 reads in part, "Here you are to indulge in matters of speculation, that freedom of inquiry that ever dispels the clouds of falsehood by the radiant sunshine of truth." In their clandestine meetings, the members seriously debated a host of questions, such as whether a wise state hath any interest nearer at heart than the education of the youth. The establishment soon afterward of chapters at Yale and Harvard ensured that Phi Beta Kappa would survive the arrival of General Cornwallis's troops at Williamsburg. A little over a century later, more than 25 branches of the society were in existence, and it was felt that a national structure was needed to bring together the scattered chapters into some uniformity. In 1883, the organization, known as the United Chapters of Phi Beta Kappa, was founded. It has its headquarters today in Washington, D.C. From its offices come most of the ongoing programs and publications described in your handbook for members. In 1875, Phi Beta Kappa enlarged its membership to include women. The society now has over 500,000 living members, elected over the years by the 286 chapters at colleges and universities throughout the country. In addition, more than 61 local alumni associations lend the society their support and provide members an opportunity for a lifelong relationship with Phi Beta Kappa and its activities and goals on the community level. The Eta Chapter of North Carolina was installed at Elon University on April 13, 2010. 69 current Elon faculty and staff members and 3 students are Phi Beta Kappa members, along with the 54 students who are being inducted into membership tonight. Activities of the local chapter have included awarding grants from the Fund for Excellence in the Arts and Sciences, selection of scholarship winners, and sponsorship of a variety of speakers, panel discussions, and special events in keeping with the mission of Phi Beta Kappa. Phi Beta Kappa continues to take great pride in its origins. It retains a number of the symbols that were devised for it at the time when the American Republic was coming into being. The present Phi Beta Kappa key, for example, virtually reproduces the design originated by the young founders of the society at William and Mary. You can see it here on the gonfalon and also in your booklet. On the front, it bears the Greek letters Phi Beta Kappa, the initials of the words meaning love of learning is the guide of life. The 3 stars in the upper left-hand corner on this side symbolize the aims of the society: friendship, morality, and literature or scholarship. A pointing hand in the lower right corner stands for aspiration. On the reverse side are inscribed the letters S and P, which stand for the society's second motto, the Latin words Societas Philosophiae, meaning philosophical society. Below them appears the date of the founding of the first chapter, December 5th, 1776. The member's name and the electing chapter are engraved above. Although Phi Beta Kappa ceased to be a secret society over 150 years ago, tradition has preserved 2 secret signs which are shared with initiates. When members met, they greeted each other by drawing the backs of the index and middle fingers of the right hand across the lips from left to right, thus apparently affirming that their lips were sealed. Yeah. They followed this sign with a handshake, which has been revealed to you. The society's symbols and purposes are now well known across the land. In fact, you can look them up on Google. I think that's been the death of many a secret society nowadays. But these purposes were eloquently summarized in the following statement by one of the society's most eminent members, Charles Evans Hughes, the late Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The particular interest of Phi Beta Kappa is in liberal education. Intensive critical study of educational aims and methods has found nothing to take its place. It means the development by careful training of the capacity to appreciate what has been done in thought, the ability to make worthwhile appraisals of achievements, doctrines, theories, proposals. It is liberal because it emancipates. It signifies freedom from the tyranny of ignorance and, from what is worse, the dominion of folly. Phi Beta Kappa holds aloft the old banner of scholarship, and to the students who have turned aside from the easier paths, and by their talent and fidelity have proved themselves to be worthy, it gives fitting recognition of a special distinction.
And now for the promise. Will the candidates for membership in course please rise? In accordance with the rules of this chapter, and in consequence of our good opinion of your intellectual and moral character, supported by your record of high attainment at this institution, you have been selected as worthy of becoming members of Phi Beta Kappa. Your names have been submitted to the scrutiny of the constitutional electors of this chapter and have met with their approval. You've been formally notified of your election, and by your presence here, signify your desire to be enrolled as members of this ancient and honorable society. Therefore, I now inquire, do you solemnly promise that you will be true and faithful to Phi Beta Kappa, uphold its standards, obey its laws, and seek to reflect credit upon your affiliation with this venerable fellowship of learners? If so, answer, we do. We do. Thank you. You may be seated. Briefly. On to the registration. Each of you has now affirmed your loyalty to Phi Beta Kappa and pledged to uphold its standards. We welcome you into the ranks of membership and ask that you now come forward as the secretary calls your name, sign the chapter register, which is over there, and receive the chapter's greetings in the form of the ancient grip of the society. We hope you remember your handshake. Will the Secretary, Helen Walton, read the names of the 2016 initiates?
I am so very pleased to introduce our new inductees. The students include 51 seniors and 3 juniors. Will you please come forward as I call your name? Morgan Nicole Abate. Michelle Lynn Alfini. Maggie Aron Bailey. Cecily Annette Basquin. Matthew Daniel Bausch. Marie Christine Bolona. Natalie Ann Brown. Felicia Lucia Cenca. Taylor Christine Cesarski. Catherine Grace Cooke. Anna Christine deDufour. Jaclyn Clarice DeVincent. Kelley Corinne Dodge. Cameron Fenner Douglas. Morgan Andrew. Angela Catherine Edwards. Hannah Garish Elmgren. Lauren Kendall Garrettson. Elena Christina Hughes. Kathleen Elizabeth Hupfield. Hannah Maria Jacobs. Simone Joy Jasper. Michael Robert Keenan. Laura Elizabeth Koleski. Aron Lanzotti. Colin Matthew Lees. Shelby Alexandra Lewis. Stephanie Marie Lobaugh. Claire Abbott Lockard. Erin Elizabeth Luther. Linka Nicole Malik. Erin Emily Martin. Casey Bryn Morrison. Melina Teresa Oliveria. Anna Anglin Pattison. Brittany Nicole Rathbun. Allison Grace Richard. Erin Nicole Robertson. Hannah Lorraine Rowland. Sophie Lauren Rupp. Daniel Stephen Snyder. Lauren Nicole Shaver. Evan Curtis Skloot. Paige Lillian Stover. Maria Christine Timmy. Stephanie Grace Tizick. Carly Jaclyn Whittle. Last year, our chapter inducted 3 students from the class of 2016 with extraordinary academic records, and I would like to recognize them now. Helen McKetsky, could she stand up? Ben Kaiser. And Heather McDonald Kaplan.
And now for the declaration. The initiates will rise again. By election of the chapter, and by your assent to its pledge and the placing of your signature on its book, the Society's requirements for initiation are fully satisfied. I therefore, in the presence of these members of the Society, declare you to be members of the chapter of Phi Beta Kappa in the state of North Carolina, and authorize you to wear its key as a badge and to participate in the meetings, sorry, that was a period. In the meetings, period. Not a comma. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. You are now lifetime members of the nation's oldest academic honor society. Be active in the programs and the community alumni associations, support its endeavors and lofty goals, and be a working advocate for the liberal arts in our society. It is now my pleasure to welcome you as members of the chapter. And now closing remarks.
I am Stephen House, Elon's provost. I have several duties tonight. First, this is a fun time of year to be at an institution like Elon. This is a month of celebration. So tonight we celebrate outstanding performances by some of our students. Well done. Tomorrow, President Lambert and several of us in this room will participate in a celebration of some of the accomplishments of our outstanding faculty in a promotion and tenure dinner. So we love this time of year. Dr. Darden, thank you for joining us tonight in our celebration of excellence in the arts and sciences. I am sure that our students are excited about entering this exhilarating environment you've described. So let's give Dr. Darden another round of applause. To the parents, well done. Thank you for joining us. We have parents from all over the country. I'm going to just rattle off some of the states you're from. We have Maine, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas. We have a family from Arizona. Who's from Arizona? Well done. Can anybody beat Arizona? I think that's the furthest. Thank you for coming. So certainly our faculty and mentors have worked very closely with the students, but we know the families and the parents have also had an important role. Let's give the families and the parents a round of applause. To the students, I would like to add my congratulations. Welcome to Phi Beta Kappa. The fact that you're a part of this organization indicates that you are exemplars and you have performed well at Elon. You should be proud. We are extremely proud of you. We look forward to following what you do. We look forward to you serving as leaders. Believe me, the world needs your intellect, your creativity, and your caring. Let's give one more round of applause to the students. Okay, I have one more role tonight. In 2003, Dr. Russ Gill and I began to work with the faculty with the dream of creating a Phi Beta Kappa chapter at Elon. We were pretty good together, but we needed one more member as part of our team. And we needed Helen Walton to be part of that team. You've probably heard of the odd couple. People called us the odd trio, Dr. Gill, Helen Walton, and myself. And Helen was such an incredible part of that team, we could not have done it without her. Well, this is a time of sadness and celebration tonight because Helen is going to retire at the end of May. But it's also a time of celebration. For several of us, we have worked with Helen on huge projects, and we could not have done it, and we will miss her. But I would like Helen to come forward one more time so we can thank her, and I would like to read a resolution. And Dr. Isaac holds this, but I need a larger font type, so I'm going to read from this. Whereas Helen Flynn Walton was the key member of the committee charged with preparing Elon University's application to host a Phi Beta Kappa chapter and worked tirelessly gathering and organizing supporting materials for the application document and guiding the process through many years to its successful completion in 2009. And whereas in the process of these endeavors, Helen has distinguished herself by her diligence, attention to detail, forethought, and resourcefulness. And whereas Helen's efforts have strengthened the arts and sciences at Elon University and improved campus life. And whereas Helen helped launch the Eta Chapter through her planning of the inaugural ceremony in April 2010. And whereas Helen has served as the secretary, historian, and treasurer for the Eta Chapter from 2010 through 2016, contributing to many chapter committees, inviting and managing the visits of distinguished Phi Beta Kappa guests every year, systematizing the annual selection of new student members, arranging the spring induction ceremony and dinner, keeping fastidious budgetary accounts, and providing detailed chapter records. And whereas Helen has provided the leadership and energy that culminated in the presentation of a national award for chapter excellence made to Elon University's Eta Chapter at the Phi Beta Kappa Triennial Council in October 2015. And whereas Helen is a lovely person, an exemplary colleague, and a passionate advocate of the academic excellence that we are honoring here tonight. Therefore, be it resolved that in recognition of her many contributions to Elon University, the Eta Chapter North Carolina of Phi Beta Kappa expresses deepest thanks on this 18th day of April 2016 to Helen Flynn Walton for her exemplary service. Thank you, Helen. You want to say something? Just say thank you.
Thank you all so much. This is such an honor, and I'm kind of speechless. In 2003, we had such an uphill battle. We tried 3 different times to get a chapter, and every time they wanted us to do a little bit more. It was a huge effort, and led by Russ Gill, and Russ is here tonight. Russ ought to stand up. He was our fearless leader, and Stephen House and myself. Thank you so much for your trust in me. I really appreciate it. It's been quite a ride. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the celebration. Congratulations. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.